Hi, I'm Kathy Smith, and welcome to On Health, the Art of Living, where I bring you the latest information on how to live a healthier, more vibrant, more passion-driven life. Now, I might be stating the obvious here, but just because you are eating a vegan or vegetarian diet doesn't necessarily mean that you're eating a healthy diet. There's an enormous difference between simply eliminating animal products from your meals and adopting a whole food, plant-based diet. Now, that's just one of the topics we're going to be talking about today with the amazing Dr. Joel Kahn. Now, Joel is one of the top cardiologists who believes that plant-based nutrition is the most powerful source of preventative medicine on the planet. He's the author of The Plant-Based Solution, and he sometimes refers to himself as the top broccoli in the United States, which I always get a giggle about. Now, in a previous episode, we dove into research that linked plant-based diets to decreased risk of cancer, heart disease, high blood pressure. Plus, it can also prolong your life. And now that's episode 71. For longtime listeners, you've heard from some of the top plant-based researchers on the planet, including, well, he's not a researcher, but John Lewis, the badass vegan, who's amazing, Dr. Walter Longo from USC, Dr. Zach Bush, who's especially into the gut health, and of course, today's guest, Dr. Joel Kahn. And yet the optimal way to eat still has controversy swirling all around it. There are different camps offering conflicting information, and oftentimes it can get muddled, it can get confusing, and downright emotional. So I look forward to hearing more science as we delve into some of the questions I've been asked by you listeners, like what are the healthiest fats to eat, whether you're vegan or not? Can you be vegan and still maintain muscle mass, or can you be vegan and stay in ketosis? Dr. Joel is one of my favorite people, and I'm excited to share his message with you today. So there's a lot to cover, whether you're sitting, eating your green drink, drinking your smoothie, heading out for your walk, or listening in the car. Let's get this show started. Joel, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited, sort of the badass vegan heart doctor.
You certainly are. And you've been a badass vegan, by the way, from what I heard on one of our recent podcasts for what, 40 years now? 40 plus years?
I just posted on social media. It's my 44th year without meats, turkey, eggs, cheese, dairy. So yeah, going on, entering the 44th year of it.
Okay, so well, I want to dive in. I mentioned before the show that I heard you on the Joe Rogan show with Chris Kresser, and that I feel like we have these tribes, we have these camps, and people have dug in their heels. You got the paleos, you got the vegans, and then you have in between. But in general, people have dug in their heels, they believe in a certain way of eating, and what we've talked about before, and I want to delve into and start into, what is some of the science? I mean, what is the science, and how can we be sure that the science you're giving us today is the real science? Not that I think you wouldn't, but you know what I'm saying, that every camp can have science to support their point of view. I want to delve into that, and so you start the conversation.
Yeah, and it's a really important question because any day of the week you can see a doctor talk about a low carb, high fat, curative diet, and you can read exactly the opposite, more the camp where I'm in, although I'm flexible. And I have been gracious and invited to speak at paleo conferences, keto conferences, carnivore conferences, because I'm willing to discuss and not necessarily engage in battle, although sometimes you feel that way. And the Rogan 4-hour podcast in 2018 was to some degree a battle, but I tried to be gracious. Now, I don't like the divisiveness, first of all, because still the unsaid part of paleo, keto, vegan is they're all elitist and maybe better than average diets. We're all sharing the common platform. We're not buying donuts. We're not pulling into fast food restaurants. We're not eating CAFO meats and cheeses and eggs and poultry, although you can see that mixed up sometimes in the paleo and the carnivore movement. So we're not speaking to the 65, 70% of people that are eating basically crap every day, which can be defined as calorie rich and processed foods. We're talking to people that already get the concept that food is a fuel for the body, food can be a medicine for the body. So it gets down to the upper crust that are arguing what's the best fuel for the body. But first, we still have to reach people. And I see people every day in my clinic. They're of wealth, they're educated, they may be executives. and it's still McDonald's drive-through at lunch, and it's like I want to pull my hair out. Literally, fortunately, I still have hair at age 62. So let's not lose sight of that. I mean, we have to have a platform that the way the American food system has gone in the last 60, 70 years, I think it was 1959 or thereabouts is when McDonald's came in, and Coca-Cola, and now we got Starbucks as one of the more evil food influences in the United States in terms of frappuccinos and their food choices. We've been waiting decades to see that improve. That's the biggest battle. You know, the only blessing maybe of COVID-19 is many people have cooked more home meals of basic, simple ingredients. Hopefully not too many carry out pepperoni pizzas, because that didn't do any good for their health. And that is the bottom line. How many fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, peas, lentils a day, a week do you eat? But when you get past get rid of crap, calorie rich and processed foods, then you get down to that, you know, conversation. And you really, I believe you did mention in your introduction, you've had Walter Longo on your show. And I consider, and for just in case audience doesn't know, Walter Longo is a PhD, born in Genoa, Italy, been in Los Angeles for over 25 years at the University of Southern California Keck School of Medicine. He heads up a biogerontology research study, which is a fancy word for he's figuring out why we age and how to use predominantly fasting and diet to slow the very source of aging processes. And he's just banging it out of the park with innovation after innovation. And he has in his book, The Longevity Diet in 2018, a concept to answer your question. 5 pillars of science. One day you read that the ketogenic diet is awesome for diabetes and maybe cured somebody of heart disease. And the next day, Dr. Dean Ornish, the dean of plant-based research, is interviewed and talks about love and joy and yoga and stress, but whole food plant diet. And very often low or no added oil and low in fat diets. How do you figure it all out? So Dr. Longo says 5 pillars. What does the biochemistry say? And I know this is technical and I'm not going to go into it. I can list for you 10 reasons a meat-heavy diet on a basic biochemical level, exactly what it does to our cells, from advanced glycation end products to elevating something called TMAO, to creating an immune reaction to something called new 5GC, inflammation, C-reactive protein, insulin resistance. I won't go any further. Plant whole food diets, brightly colored, the simple food plate of Physician Committee for Responsible Medicine, fruit, vegetables, legumes, and 100% whole grains, wins biochemically. Then you get to randomized studies. There's very few randomized studies. They're hard to do when it's food. Go tell 1,000 people 500 eat one way, 500 eat another for 5 years. It's virtually impossible. It's been done a couple times. It's been challenged that the data was even worth anything once they've been done, and it's very expensive. We've got a few. We've got Dr. Neil Barnard taking diabetics type 2 with a whole food plant diet, low in oil, versus the American Diabetes Association. Whole food plant diet's one. Of course, Dr. Dean Ornish did a randomized study for heart disease. We talked about it at last visit. So we do have randomized studies. Then we've got the biggest war is about something called nutritional epidemiology. We studied 400,000 people in Europe. We asked them a bunch of questions 20 years ago, and we found out 20 years later who was alive, who had cancer, who had heart disease. And we found that people that eat more fruits and vegetables have less cancer, heart disease, diabetes. We found that people that incorporate more whole grains have less heart disease and diabetes. All these are real observations. Well, the keto and the paleo people go crazy. How do you know it was the diet? How do you know that people that eat more fruits and vegetables don't smoke less, don't exercise more, don't live in better communities with better hospitals? Well, the reality is, in most of these studies, they do technical statistics to try and eliminate those variables and isolate just the food. And it's never perfect, but God knows there's hundreds, if not thousands of these studies. The bulk of them indicate diets high in saturated fat, cheese, butter, meats, lard, poultry, fish correlate with more risk of heart disease. Lower your saturated fat, you lower your risk of heart disease. Diets rich in fruits and vegetables, less risk of diabetes, even less risk of Alzheimer's. Study after study after study correlates, doesn't prove, but correlates. Plant-rich diets, less disease. Then there's something called centenarian studies. You want to live to be 100 and healthy? Let's go study people that are 100 and healthy. Majority of them are at least plant-strong diets. They're certainly not going to McDonald's, but they're also not eating red meat 2 times a day. They're not frying their food. They're not eating, tremendous amounts of cheese and dairy. There may be small amounts in it, and there's going to be variability. The classic is Okinawa, Japan in the 1950s, 60s, 70s. A plant almost exclusive diet with some fish, very high complex carbohydrate, very low in fat, tremendous health benefits, very little cancer, very little type 2 diabetes, very little dementia and heart disease. And then the last part, and I'm done, Dr. DeLongo, is what does this diet impact in terms of the environment and other factors? A meat-heavy diet is a environmental disaster. They're cutting down and burning the Amazon to grow more grains, to feed cows, to feed humans. If we just eat the grains and eat the soybeans, we wouldn't have to do all that because we've got plenty of land in the United States if we convert to more plant diet. So, I mean,
okay. Well,
there is an analysis that gives us the answer. And it's either only plants or largely plant diets. And you can pick the last 10%, unless you're a sick patient, where you probably ought to do all plant diets.
Okay, well, it sounds like whichever food plan you pick, as you're saying here, and it seemed like as you were talking, the paleos, so many people that are following the ketos, the paleos, the vegan diets, the centerpiece is fruits and vegetables. So let's just focus in on that. And I have 2 reasons for going here. First of all, what is the recommended amount? Let's talk a little bit, let's get really in the trenches of how much people should be eating. What is the average American eating? Because I've heard everything from Sarah Gottfried says, you need to eat, let me get it. It's like a pound of vegetables a day. The other one that I'm taking a course. I don't know if you've heard of the gut doctor, Dr. Will Bolsowitz, Dr. B. Yeah, and so fiber fueled, and I'm taking a 6-week course with him. But it's like 35 plants a week that we should be eating, and talking about how many. And I think what is the average American eating, and what is the expectation if you want to shift to eating a more plant-based diet?
Yeah, it's a great question, and Dr. Will is a wonderful guy and a good friend, and that's a great book. I didn't know he had a course. That sounds fun. So just talk about heart
by the way,
disease.
it's all about pooping. It's all about.
Well, yeah, there's a famous English MD passed on, Dennis Burkitt, who studied nutrition in Africa, and there's actually diseases named after him. I don't know if that's an honor, but he usually is. And his famous statement was, you can judge the health of a community by the size of their bowel movements. Bigger poops, bigger health, smaller hospitals. And it was an observation he made 50, 60 years ago, and I think it's very true. So you're right on track. Study poop. There's also a funny t-shirt I have, eat plants, epic dumps. So it all goes back to,
well, it's all that fiber, which I want to get into, because I don't think people understand why fiber. We hear fiber and we think Metamucil and whatever, and it moves, everything through our gut. But once you find out the prebiotic and the effects of fiber, so I'd love for you to delve into that if you would.
Yeah, so let me go to fruit and vegetables. So talk heart disease just for a minute. This is an answer to your question. So the classic risk factors for developing heart disease: smoking. Now in America, about 15% of people smoke. Used to be 50%. So we're at 85% non-smokers. Exercise, you're the queen, but the data is maybe about half Americans get daily fitness. Okay, not bad. Not good enough, not bad. How about control of blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol? We're doing better. Let's go to the last one there, nutrition. The recommendation is frequent servings of fruit and vegetables. The government says 5 or more a day. 3% of Americans, okay, remember, 85% of Americans don't smoke. 3% of Americans get 5 or more servings of fruits and vegetables a day.
Shocking.
And many, many studies out there have shown, even if you're not completely committed to a whole food plant diet, that 5 or more servings of fruit and vegetables a day. Harvard School of Public Health, a woman, it's part of the equation, might live 14 more years, a man 12 more years in good health. You want to look at preventing heart attacks, 5 or more servings of fruit and vegetables a day. You want to look at cancer prevention studies. Yeah, and it's linear. It's like with a medicine, 50 milligrams gets one response and 100 milligrams gets another. 5 servings of fruit and vegetables a day is awesome, but 7, 8, 9 might get you more of a response. Now there is a limit. And the last thing I'd say, if you're sick, you might need more of a dose. You might need, if you're trying to treat rheumatoid arthritis with fiber-rich plant diets, which has been effective. You may have to up that to levels or even multiple sclerosis. There's a famous protocol out there called the Walls protocol. It's not all plant-based, but it can be. Talking 10 plus servings of fruit and vegetable, emphasizing green leafies a day, because you're trying to treat a disease. But for those listeners that are healthy, if you just hit 5, I mean, you can do that in a smoothie and you're done for the day, but I'd rather you eat whole foods. Grab an apple, have an orange, always a salad, a slice of tomato, lettuce, have, starchy vegetables, potatoes. I just have gotten on a yuca kick because I have a daughter-in-law from Cuba and Caracas, and they love yuca, a really starchy plant. It's really delicious. So anyways, that's the answer to the question. 5 or more a day, I'm happy. Unless you got a disease, you might have to double the dose.
Okay, and then you were actually even following up on that. You mentioned that if you are going to eat a piece of meat, if you eat some leafy greens with it, dark leafy greens, it minimizes the impact of the meat on your blood vessels?
It does, and I don't want people eating burgers, but there has, again, unbelievably interesting study about 5 years ago. They took healthy volunteers at a hospital. They put an apparatus on their arms to measure blood flow and artery health. They went down to the cafeteria and they got a hospital hamburger. What a great study. They fed them the hospital hamburger, and for a number of hours, their artery function went down. They brought the same people back another day. They either got a big bowl of salad with the same burger, or they actually got a slice of avocado, a pretty big hunk of avocado on the burger. They did not have the same decrease in artery health, demonstrating your gut is the key to health or disease of many systems, including your arteries. And anytime you add in fiber-rich, brightly colored fruits and vegetables to a poor quality meal, you have a sloppy pizza, but you have it with a big salad, you're better off. Now, you're best off if you just skip the bad foods, quote bad. It's a judgment, but the science supports that those are not really healthy foods. But yeah, plants are the antidote to the, calorie-rich and processed crap that we put in our life.
So what about fats? I know that, again, big debate on how many fats, and within even the vegan community, you have the Ornishes, the Pridikins that were going below 10, 7, 8% fat, and then you have a range in between as far as the guidelines. What are the USDA guidelines? Or something like 30% fat now, or 30 up to 30%
calories from fat, and saturated fat, a specific fat you're going to find in butter, lard, meats, cheeses, egg yolk, and some pastries like croissants, less than 10%. So maybe I'll do the debate. I'll just play both parts.
Okay.
Because I do this all the time.
Well, here's for me. I'm going to give you a little bit more information to fill this whole thing out, because I know that, full disclosure, that I can never use you as my doctor, so I don't. I can only use your information. But I did mention that my LDLs were creeping up, and I did something, and you probably don't remember, but I did switch a few things. I started some red yeast, and I've heard you, preaching, low LDLs. I've never in my life had low LDLs, but I did get off all saturated fats, including the coconut oils and things like that, even the plant-based ones, and my LDLs dropped to a nice for me. But here's the big thing. I went in this week, literally the beginning of this week, because I knew you were going to be on the show, and I went and had a CAT scan at the University of Utah here to see my calcium score. And guess what? 0, 0, 0, 0. Wow. I know. So I thought, oh, Joel is going to love this. But so now, having said that, I want 2 questions, because I don't want to go on too much about me, but I've talked to other women. I want to hear about, if you have a calcium score, explain that. If you have plaque in your arteries, can that be reversed? That's one thing I want to know. And then just get back to this fats, because I honestly am confused. I mean, some people are saying olive oil is not good for you. It's not whole food, plant-based. And I love olive oil. And so, you can't have too many seeds or nuts. So give us, Dr. Joel's
I got good news for you. I got good news for you, Kathy. So let me 2 minutes on the CT scan called the calcium score. One of my favorite topics. This is not a plug, but about 4 years ago, I wrote a book with a funny tale, Dead Execs Don't Get Bonuses, which pleads with people to get the CT scan you just talked about. You need a prescription usually from your doctor to go to the hospital, assuming you don't know anything about your heart arteries, you haven't had a stent or a bypass. As you know, you lie down for about 10 seconds, you hold your breath, no needle, no injection, you
Nothing.
go home. When you come back zero, you've got the ultimate screening test that your arteries are youthful. All that fitness, all that great diet, all that hard work you did, Kathy, to some maybe degree genetics, you won the lottery, and it actually correlates with incredibly low risk for years of heart attack, strokes, healthier kidneys, healthier lungs, better brain. It's one of the best things somebody can do, and it's typically $75 or $100.
I was going to say it's cheap now. When it used to be $2,000, now it's $100 to get this test.
This is an example from my practice brochure. The yellow arrow is pointing to a heart artery. It's not yours. There's a hunk of white there. That's calcium in a heart artery. That's bad news, although we can manage it. And to answer your question, we can help it go away. Whole food plant diets. But that's enough on the CT scan. It is the most important screening test to get, maybe age 45 to 55, depending on your risk and depending when you learn about it, except if you've already had a heart attack, a stent, or a bypass, you don't need it. Dead execs don't get bonuses. But to answer your question, over the past 70 years, there have been a dozen important studies. Group of patients with heart disease, sometimes very severe, can diet improve their outcome? Whether it was Mr. Nathan Pritikin, Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, Dr. John McDougall, you can actually go back earlier to a Dr. Lester Morrison. Good or bad, the diets they designed to study and publish, real science, always were naturally low-fat diets that advised avoiding avocados, nuts, oils, and certainly butter, lard, ghee. Coconut oil is the king. There's more saturated fat in coconut oil than even in a steak. And there's a little controversy, but the vast majority of nutritional cardiologists are no to coconut oil. So if you have heart disease and you're seriously striving to reverse it, the science says you should avoid oils. Now, Kathy, you just proved you don't have heart disease with a calcium score of 0. Plus, there is ample data that really high quality extra virgin olive oil, very different than coconut oil, has been studied over and over and over and has the potential to lower inflammation, to lower cholesterol levels, and to actually be artery friendly. So I am a pro, I'm a snob about my extra virgin olive oil. It's got to be European in a glass bottle. It always has to be extra virgin olive oil. Spend a little more quality, and I don't dump it all over. Let me just give you an example. They're published 2 weeks ago, as timely as could be, from Spain. It's one of the bastions of extra virgin olive oil science, and maybe there's a little bias because it's culturally so built into their diet. They took 805 people with heart disease, not you, Kathy, heart attack, bypass, other abnormalities. Half were put on a lower fat, plant strong Mediterranean diet, not as low as Dr. Ornish, but pretty low. The other half were encouraged 4 or 5+ tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil a day, which adds up to you're buying a lot of extra virgin olive oil. A year later, when they checked artery function, some of the most sophisticated measurements, far better with extra virgin olive oil than what they called a higher complex carb, lower fat approach. Nowhere near as low as the therapeutic diet of Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Ornish. So if somebody will go get that calcium scan and it's 0, or they've never had a heart attack, a stroke, a bypass, and you want to drizzle extra virgin olive oil on your salad, on your vegetables, maybe use it to saute even, it's the best choice. There's other data from Harvard School of Public Health that goes right along with it. If you're using butter, extra virgin olive oil, it's a winner. If you're using lard, you're using ghee, extra virgin olive oil is a winner. Whether the other plant oils are as healthy is not as well studied. So just go with the one that has all this science.
Well, and then you also can eat your avocados and your seeds and your nuts and your almonds, etc.
Yeah. I'm much more lenient, even with most heart patients, avocados, nuts, seeds, and now extra virgin olive oil. But if you came to me today and said, not you, I'm supposed to have bypass next week, my arteries are like a 90-year-old and I'm only 60, I might well advise that person start out with the more naturally low-fat diet. Let's go with the science and let's get you better, and then we can see about backing off a little bit. But all plants.
Okay, so I know we only have a little bit more time with you. So one of the things that I know I've been getting a lot of questions about is one, this supplementation. I mean, all vegan, going all plant-based, not necessarily getting certain vitamins, which you've talked about, and minerals. Biggie, everybody talks about is B12. But I kind of have a list here, and I'm just going to throw them out, and maybe you could just address them. It's your, it's your omega-3s, your selenium, your zinc, and your vitamin D, and of course your B12. Would you recommend supplementation? And because I've heard, I want to jump into also the omega-3s, because once again, people are saying you don't need your fish oil salmon capsules. You can get that from hemp seed, and I've heard controversy about that. Like you really can't, I don't know if it's digest, but you can't metabolize it the same way.
So there's, is there controversy? There is. Dr. John McDougall, take B12 only, don't take too much, you're done. And if you do more than that, you're kind of bastardizing the beauty of a all plant diet. To others, Dr. Joel Furman, myself, that have tested the levels of the exact nutrients you mentioned in blood in thousands of people. You can get your selenium, your zinc, your omega-3, your vitamin D, your B12, your iodine, all these are testable and covered through insurance. If you know why you're testing for them, nutritional deficiencies are covered. There's an amazingly high frequency of nutritional deficiencies in meat eaters, fish eaters, and vegans. It's just uniform. This isn't a new finding. Our USDA said 70, 80 years ago, majority of Americans are low in magnesium. We don't use much Morton salt anymore. We're low in iodine. So if you test, you find a lot of nutritional deficiencies. The controversy is, do you replace them or not? You can eat mushrooms for vitamin D, flaxseed, chia seed, hemp hearts for omega-3. You can throw in some kelp for iodine. You can eat some Brazil nuts for selenium. I'm all for that. But there is now, industry has created multivitamins for vegans that have in one capsule B12, algae, omega-3, vitamin D, selenium, zinc, iodine. I use a lot of them in my practice because it's one-stop shopping.
Which brand are you recommending? Are you recommending?
I'm using a brand called Complement Plus, and I think their website is lovecomplement.com.
Okay.
And it's just an easy solution. The last patient, right before we got online here, was an internationally known yoga instructor, obviously no name. And last year, despite one of the cleanest diets, all the vitamins we talked about were low. He's been taking 3 capsules, which is the recommended dose of Complement Plus. All the vitamin levels are where they should be this year. So it's an easy fix, and people like to see normal lab values. Now, 50 years from now, did I just prevent him from having a brain or a associated, thyroid or other disease? I don't know, but I do like to see, those things correct back to normal, either with food or some simple supplementation.
Okay, so I think the last topic I want to touch on, and I know it's also a delicate subject, but given the fact that California, West Coast is on fire and burning up, and we have a lot of things that some people believe are attributed to climate change. Other people don't believe that. So whether we go down that path or not, and that's not the topic of this show, why are we doing good things for our children? Because when I look at my 2 daughters and then my grandchildren, that's another thing that I start factoring in as like, what kind of planet are we leaving them? So do you want to just talk a little bit about the industry?
Yeah, and I already brought that up a bit with Dr. Longo's 5 pillars of evaluating nutritional plans, because the 5th pillar involves talking about the environment. And there are advantages to having a nearly or totally plant-based diet in terms of your carbon footprint, in terms of water utilization, in terms of potentially greenhouse gas production, CO2 emission. And it has been judged by the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the USDA, and others that eating plants is less of a stress on the planet. We could feed more people, we would use less resources, we would pollute the planet less. And it includes, air. Yes, it's true. We may have to truck broccoli from California to Michigan in the winter. That's pollution. And if it were, animal foods, it might be the same. But in the actual industry of raising the enormous amount of meat and animal-based foods, it's much more energy intensive and polluting. The example is, I'm not a big fan of the Beyond Meat burger as a regular treat, but University of Michigan down the road from where I am in Detroit did a study, a 8-ounce hamburger and 8-ounce Beyond Meat burger. They analyzed what goes into it. 90% less water to produce a Beyond Meat burger compared to a beef burger. And that's multiplied by burger after burger after burger. It's a huge amount of stress on the environment that we're able to relieve. Now, you want to recycle, and you want to be cognizant of the cars you drive, and you want to buy, green friendly companies and products. But our food is at least a small part of the program. But if you multiply by millions of people, it could be a pretty big part of the program.
I do like those Beyond burgers, but I know you're not a big fan. I don't eat them much, but they're when you're in a pinch or whatever, they're good.
A little tip, and I don't own stock, but if you have Trader Joe's in your community, they have a meat substitute burger and a chicken substitute burger. The ingredient list is so much cleaner than the other two major brands. So again, I don't own Trader Joe's stock.
Oh, I'm going. We have a Trader Joe's. Got it.
That's what I have in my freezer. I think they're, really good.
Okay, so I know you got to run. I don't know. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. I don't know how you find time to do everything you do. I just imagine you in the operating room looking at hearts and whatever, and promoting your books and bringing your message to the world. And honestly, I am such a big fan because I just admire your passion for what you do. So thank you for being on the show, and I can't wait till we can do this once in person.
And I agree. And if somebody listening doesn't have the energy they want, go clean, whole food, plant-based, throw in a little, fitness and sleep and friendship and community. And you might find your energy just really pick up on, what nature really provided us, which are these super, super green and colorful foods to eat. But thank you. It's always a pleasure being on your show.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
So my biggest takeaway today is that to win the war on chronic diseases like obesity, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and dementia, all nutrition camps have to join hands to teach practical ways to get more plant-based meals and snacks into our everyday routines. So if you want to learn more from Dr. Kahn, visit his website at drjoelkahn, KAHN.com. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you would come and join me on Instagram at Kathy Smith Fitness. I look forward to connecting with all of you. I love hearing your questions. I love getting feedback from you. And as a quick reminder, with these podcasts, guess what? They're great to listen to when you're walking. I call it walk and talk. You walk and I talk. You can burn calories while listening to something new. You're going to learn some new information. And don't forget, there's dozens of other episodes in the archives. So if you're interested in separating the facts from the fiction, the fads from the fiction, then you will want to check in time-restricted eating or ways to help increase weight loss with the new Game Changer, whether it's HIIT training or strength training. So check out some of the other shows. Now, the podcast is available wherever you listen. So search for The Art of Living with Kathy Smith, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify, and you'll find all the episodes. You can even do a shout out. Sometimes they go, hey Siri, play that Kathy Smith podcast. And guess what? It pops up, which I think is very funny. It makes me laugh when it does. So while you're there, don't forget to leave a review. Because you see, reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, they're the lifeblood for people that make shows like mine. So if you can, put your review, tell me what you like, tell me what other guests you want to hear. I love reading them, and I'm always here for you. So until next time, here's to your health.